So, in the last session, we saw some data manipulation techniques using NumPy, right? Uh, and we also saw some of the important functions which could be used in data manipulation on a large data set in form of lists or any iterable. So today we will again look at more data manipulation, right? In there we saw that we write a CSV file and then we try to manipulate it using NumPy, right? NumPy is very powerful library, deals with arrays, right? And I mean even in Pandas you can use NumPy arrays to create data frames. So we will understand what all those data types are when we will reach there. But today we will focus on Xlwings, right? So Xlwings is, if we just search it here, right? What is Xlwings? Xlwings is a open source library that makes it easy to automate Excel with Python. Okay, so basically, if you know how macro works in any Excel, so basically it is some defined list of the steps that is followed. So, but writing a macro can be tough, right? Plus, writing a macro in a very big file, handle to if, for example, the file size is already some 20-30 MB, and then it's even slowing down your computer, right? Then writing a macro on top of that would be very difficult, right? But you and what? Why do we write macro to manipulate it, right? To manipulate it in Excel. So here you have an option to use, since you know Python, you have an option to choose use Xlwings, which allow you to create your own macros outside of Python. Right? Not exactly, those are not exactly macros, but basically you can write your own scripts to manipulate Excel just the way a VBA script does, right? A macro does. Okay, so we will see how that works, right, in this session. So I hope uh, I hope whoever has joined have installed Pandas that I have shared in the section. So if not, right, then it's great. So if not, that is fine. Uh, you may write the code and see how it will work on my screen, and later you can run that code when you have Anaconda installed, and it would work the same way, right? So just try to understand if you have not installed it, right? So I will just, all right, so let's start. So first thing, I mean, we want to manipulate sheets. So let's get right away into Xlwings, right? Now, I mean, I will be sharing you with the code here, right? So all the things that we want to discuss will be inside this code, right? So let me just remove some of these files here and save my file as save it as in some folder I created manipulation, where I have also placed those two files that I want to manipulate, right? Both are same, one is CSV, one is Excel. So I'll just say session, I will give it a name later because otherwise it could be a long name. I will just say practice pandas, okay? Pandas pract dot py. So in fact, not pandas, Xlwings first. So I mean, if we go here and in fact open this up, this is how you would come here and see how it works, right? Interaction automation, macros, Excel tools, user-defined functions, lot of things you could do, right? So I don't want to see this actually. I want to go to the docs, right? And in the docs, I have the documentation, okay? And here we have some quick start. So it says that you can automate and interact with Excel from Python, and then it has some examples, right? So here you can see it can use pandas and all, different kind of libraries you can use in conjunction with each other. But let's first look at how Xlwings work. Okay, so I mean, yeah, we will see some of these examples also so that you have a basic idea of if you know Python, you never need to go to the macros. You can do all of those stuff using Python. So let's see. Now, the first thing that we do. So, I mean, if you have Anaconda installed, one thing we can check before proceeding is that let us open command line and open the interpreter once. And just we will see that if we have Xlwings, right? Xlwings, and then it should not give me any error. So basically, I have Xlwings, right? You should not have any error. And then I will just get out from the this thing and I will change my directory to the my current directory where my stuff are there. So I will just say documents slash pxfilework and then manipulation. So all my stuff is currently here. So first thing I will do uh, to get, I mean, first thing that I have to do is to get the module itself, right? So I will say import Xlwings, right? Xlwings is the module. And we could keep it like this, but we will use an alias because that is like, you know, the standard. If you wanted to search for do this with Xlwings, okay, something like that, just a random query. So I mean, anywhere, even here, you will see that, you know, xw. Okay, anywhere else as well, you will see that they are using xw. So it's like a standard. So we will also use xw, and we will import it like this. And then what we will say is that let's define some name, okay, for holding our file name. So I already have this documents. I already had these two files, right? So I don't need to give a path because they are in the same folder. So anyway, what I will do is that I will say xw.book, and then I could just say net schedule dot csv, right? And then when I will run this, right, what will happen? You can see that there is no Excel file open here right now. But if I run this and say Python Xlwings practice.py, what will happen is that that net schedule file will open, right? So it basically opened that file, and I mean, it did nothing more up till now, but it opened the file. Now let me close it back once, right? I will just close it manually. Obviously, I could do it something like here, but let me close it back. Now, now you know it is XW is like a global object here, and XW.book. When you say something like this, it opens you a book, right? An Excel CSV or whatever. What you could do now is you could say XW.range, right? Range, and say something like, you know, uh, just like we have Excel ranges, like A to something, and then we have rows, we have columns this side, and then we have rows on this side, right? So columns are named as A, B, C, D, and something like that, and rows are 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say I wanted G column, and which row? Ninth row, right? To let's say P column and 23rd row. So this is how a range in Excel is defined, right? And what I could just say is value, right? Just the value of it. So what this would give me. So if I want to just print it and see what that this particular thing holds, right? I can see that. Let me just save it and run. I can see that basically from G9 to P23, right? G9 to P23, all of these rows have been printed here, right? So you could see how easy it was to read this data from here and get it into list of lists. And now you have already seen how much operation you could do from a list of lists, right? We have seen yesterday. So all kind of data manipulations could be done, right? So, but let's try some of the stuff. right? What I am doing is I am using this global object XW, right? Which knows that my current workbook is this, and that is why it knows that in my current workbook, whatever it is, my current cursor, right, in which whatever is opened, I have to get this range and then this value, right? So this is a global way if you are working with one file. But what if there were like 5 files and then XW dot range would not work, right? I mean, then you would have to work with objects. So what you will do, you could assign it to an object and say netsch data, for example, right? And say equal to this. Okay. So now I am holding it in a variable. Let me just close it back manually. And now what I could do is use this particular whatever it is, a variable or object to do further stuff. So I'll just comment this out. Let me write it here. So opening a workbook, right, and importing these sheets, right? So what this thing does is that it imports all of the sheets which are there in this file. If it is an Excel file, it would import all of the sheets. If it's a CSV file, only one sheet will be there, right? So this is what it does. And then what I could do from here, if I wanted to get the range, get values from the sheet, right? So what I could say that net schedule dot. So in net schedule, let me just try to see, or let me just, since there are only 3 lines, I'll just do it on interpreter, right? I hope you would understand why I'm doing it because I want to see it live. So I'll just do something like this. If I do this, then this opens, and then I could see that my net SH data uh, schedule.csv. Okay, it is because it's not, just let me close this up and let me just exit it. The thing is that I am not in the folder where that net schedule file exists, so no such file. Let me just go there once and uh, and then let me now run those commands here. So now it opened the correct file, right? Net schedule correct one is open and there is no error. So now if I see, now we have already seen it. If you want to check what all attributes this particular variable or object contains, we could do something like dir, right? And then I could see that I have some of the methods that I could apply, right? Something like macro, open template, save, selection, set, mocker, sheets, right? So basically, there is something called sheets in this object, right? So I could access the sheets. Okay. So let me just try the sheets, right? The sheets. Now I could see that inside of the sheets, right? I have the active add API count and IMPL, some of the objects, right? But this is an iterable, right? We could see that this is an iterable. In fact, this is a dictionary and uh, you know doesn't say, might be an iterable also, right? But here it's clear, right? It might be there, but here it's clear that it's an iterable, right? So you could basically access the sheets like this, okay? So like this, if I just want to, so since there is only one sheet, right? I could only do the zeroth one, and then it would tell me that it's a sheet, right? But if it was an Excel, however many sheets were there, they would come as an index because it's an iterable. So all of the sheet names so will be in a list, for example, right? So maybe anyway, this the directly you would not get all the values of this. So I mean, just trying this. So you got the point, right? That we could see that we could get all the sheets. Anyway, let's proceed further. But in this one, we have only one sheet. So what we could say that sheets and then 0, and then we could say range, right? So here we could see that if we were working with a global object, there was capital range. But if we want to traverse through each of the sheets and get it to the range, I mean, this is more better, right? When you are holding the book into an object and then you could now traverse over each of the sheets, right? So again, you could do the same thing and say this one, right? Same range, and then now you could say value. So now you could print this. And we save this and run it. Let me just close this. We see that the file is open and we get the exact same, right? Exact same thing. So I mean, this is better because now you have an object which you can manipulate and do whatever you want. And obviously later, since you have an object, what you could do was just save it, and then you could say that close it, right? Like schedule data dot close. So I mean, here you have fully opened the book, took out some values from the book, and then saved it and closed it. So if I run it now, right, let me close it. This time you will see that it would be automatically closed. So I mean, it would read it and then it would close it, right? So it closed it, right? But this particular thing still stays. We would see. So I mean, there is a way to even close that, but basically your file was closed. So now, what did I gain from here, right? You could read the file, but I mean, and it seems easy that getting values from the sheet is very easy. But what about if I wanted to give this back to the in the sheets, right? So it is very simple, right? So let's say we have already seen it, and let's open it again to see once. Let's say I wanted to. I'm already getting G9 to P23, right? But let's say I don't want to do that. Let's say I want to change the first row, right? Or all the first row of elements to something else, right? So how I could do that? So I know that it is count 16. Okay, some 16 things are there. So my replacement should be 16 things. It could be anything, right? So let me just create a replacement very quickly and say replacement equal to let's say range itself, right? Range can give me an iterable, right? Uh, or let me use the list comprehension and say that x for x in range of how many we wanted. We wanted 17, right? So we would go till 16 because I mean 15 values we will have there, and then obviously okay. So this is fine. Now we will have, if we just see it here and just to try to run it, we would see that we have 1, 2. Uh, Earlier it was okay because we are also putting 0, so we could just say from 1 to 17. Now we are at 16. So anyway, this is my replacement, and there should be a list of lists rather. So I will just say that it's a list of lists, okay? Because you will be replacing a list from a list, okay? So this is my replacement, and now I could access those values the same way, right? So I could say that next scheduled data from 0th one, I want to replace at A2, right? So if I just want to replace at A2 and I paste all of those values, what happens is that if I, just let's say I want to copy this and paste it here, right? If I paste at A2, it gets pasted at all of the columns, right? So this is exactly what happens even if you paste at A2. in this one, the values, it would get pasted. It's just that its size should be same. Okay, so what we could do is value is equal to replace. Right? Simple. So now, since you have a replacement and it is a list of lists, this would work. Now you will see that, let me just close it once, right? And now you will see that the first row will have those elements replaced by the replacement that we have suggested. Okay. So I can now see that it opens and it does something and it closes, right? But it would have saved it. So let me just open it back and see that those numbers have been changed, right? So I just needed to give it a particular place. Obviously, I could specify that A2 to, whatever the next range was, up to what, P2. So I could definitely say that, but it is understood that since you want to replace that many elements, I don't need to specify the end range, right? So I mean, you could see that it's very easy, you know. Even if you wanted to do some manipulation now, like it could have been very easy. In fact, your replacement could have been something like this. So, for example, you pasted the fourth row right there. So it could have been fourth row, right? Four and which one? From A4 to B4. And now this value would be replaced. You could use lowercase as well as uppercase. I like to use uppercase, so that is why I use uppercase only. But let me just show you this what I'm trying to say. So you could replace data from the list, from the whatever elements were present in the file itself, right? So this is what we do using macros, right? We take, so now we could see that it happened, right? So it was able to take this particular row and just pasted it here, right? It just pasted this whole thing here again. Okay, so I think this would give you some idea of the capabilities, and then I think let's do a very small exercise, something like that, what we did yesterday. So again, now since you have all of these things in a, let's say I have this one. So I say, and in fact, let me define it somewhere down and here, and I say that sum list. Okay, sum list. So here I would just say get values from a list, and here I would just say replace this values in the sheet. Okay. So it is very, I mean, easy, right? Here you can get the values from sheet and assign it to something, and then later you can assign it to some other thing in the Excel itself, right? So you can basically move data from one place to another, from one sheet to another if you had multiple sheets. You'll see that, right? I hope this is making sense to everyone, and it is seeming useful to everyone. Okay, and then now I have some list, right? So this is some list of lists. Let's say I have something like this. So I can see that in the first column, in fact the first element of every list of lists, right? We have some value. So let's say I want to uh, uh, just get the sum of all the values. So let us do a very small manipulation, and then I want to repeat all of those values in this column. Okay, last one. Right. So how I could do that? Let's see. So we can see that in this one we have 577 elements. 576 this one, and one is hidden. So basically in my the total one, whatever it will come, it will be repeated 576 times, and you know it would have one more something column. So let's create that list and see how we could do that. So first, what we have to do, we have this value, right? We have some list, right? This would be a list of lists. Now, if I import NumPy, and if we wanted to do some, summing operations and something like that. So, in fact, uh, let's do it both ways. Let's do by numpy as entry, and then what we could see that, say that numpy dot array, yeah, right. So just a line somewhere, numpy dot array, and then you could pass some list to it. So it was a list of list, right? Now it is a 2D array because it's a list of lists, so it would ultimately turn it into a 2D array, right? And then what you could do was slice it, right? Slice it. So let's say I assign this to something. Okay, I say that final sum or fin sum, and then I want a sum of this thing, right? So currently I have an array. From that array, what I could do, I could take out elements, right? So since it's the 2D array, I want what? I want all the rows, and then I want what? First column. In fact, the zeroth column of that array. I hope how I've done this makes sense to everyone. In fact, let us do this quickly. And I mean, some list here it would be difficult to visualize, but let's print it here itself. Okay. So let's print this thing, copy and print it. Right. So let's see what this outputs. If I run this, that could be closed, and some what we want was given to me. Okay. So I mean, obviously, currently it is an array, right? Because there are no commas. But what you could see that if I convert it back into a list, right, it would be I have those elements now, right? So let's say list, and then all the elements of a list I could sum, right? We've already seen that we could sum all the elements of a list provided there, and we can see that these seem like they are numbers, right? So this should not be an issue. Let us try and print this final sum, then sum. Okay, and let me just stop this up. So now if I run this, I can see that that file was opened and the sum was printed out. So sum of all of these was printed out. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to give the last column. I want to basically in the last column, let me just close these. These are just Excel objects. These are just left behind. Obviously, there is a way, something like bit Excel xw.bit, but I don't remember it. But we will just see on Google what it is. So anyway, uh, the thing is that here we could sum all of those numbers that we had extracted, and then now we want to give it to the last column. Okay. So how we could do that? Right. I have what? I have a sum list, right? If I would just repeat it 576 times, right? So let me say my uh, or append list. Okay, append list. This is to be appended. We will say that we will use in comprehension and say x for x in uh, right. So it is just simple number, right? So I would not be able to iterate it, but I could say fin sum, right? Always I want one number only. I want it repeated so many times. So I can say in range 0 to 576, right? So what would give me for every iteration, it would give me the same number. And that is what I want. I want this number to be repeated as many times as the rows. Okay. And those rows are 576 because we have, obviously this could be dynamic, not a problem, but we have currently done it like this. So my appendix is this, and now you can see that instead of creating a list of lists, I'm just using list, right? So just a convention that whenever you want to go something like this, you create a list of lists. But whenever you want to go something like this, right, you create a simple list. So if you want to put a simple list somewhere, you create a one-day list. Okay. But if you want to do space something like this, which has an X dimension as well as Y dimension, right? So you would do a list of lists. I hope this makes sense. Let's try what happens. We will see, right? And then we would understand. So here we have seen what happens. So I have an append list, and somehow if I could paste it here like this, right, I would have it, right? So anyway, but this append list has one small thing left, and which is what? Which is that header. Let's say I call it sample, right? So now I have a list which has all the elements. If I just want to see it, you could see I saw that I have successfully created a longer list of this many elements. Now I just want to. I could also see that it starts with a sample, right? So it makes sense. Now let us do it. And what I could say that again here, something like this. I want to in sheet 2 in some range. I want to paste a value, right? That value I know that is append list, right? That is fine. But where I want to paste it is the question. So let us go back and check where I want to paste it. I want to paste it in Q1 column, right? And since, when I would paste it, it would be whole. So I don't need to specify the whole range. I could just say Q1, right? So now if I, let me just try and wait for some time also, because, and obviously you could see that here I've imported this, here I've imported this. So you could import all of these as stock at once, or you could do it whenever you require. So I just say from import, or I could just, just import it, sleep from time, import sleep. I want to just wait for some time so that you can see that operation happens. So I'll just say 5 seconds, right? So let us see if that operation is happens successfully. So let me just do it, comment it, and do CLS, and then perform the function. Uh, Now I could see that I don't have any errors, but no errors. So let's see what has actually happened in this file. So now it has, turned it into a row, right? So, but you wanted to get it into a column, right? So it should have a list of lists, as I told, right? This would go like this, and it would be a list of lists. Maybe I mistold, wrongly. What will happen is that it should be a list of lists. So this should be a list of lists, right? And then this should also have this as a list. So this should be fine. So you already seen that when it is a simple list and not a list of lists, what happens is that it pastes like this. But if you have a list of lists, it would paste like this, right? So what it looks like, let me just, if you want to show you here. First of all, so this thing will be, I'll just clear this out so that it's in a normal state. And I'll say, save. Next video, save and replace. Let us just see what it looks like now. So it looks like a list of lists. It will just get it here. What would happen is that when we see it's a list of lists, and in this list there are more columns, right? There is comma and comma and comma. So it would take the all the cells of the spreadsheet. Let me just open it again like this. So let me just give you a more visual form. So if my list was something like this, okay, list of lists, 1, 2, right? And then 3, 4, right? And then 5, 6, right? This list. So this is a list of lists with these numbers. If this was printed somewhere, let's say I say E4, what would happen? It would be coming like this, right? 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So this is a list of lists, but if it had, let's say, I will just paste it here. It had more elements. Let's say 8, 9, right? 8 and 9, and then something 67, and then 2 and 1, 21 and 3. Now it has all of that has 4 elements. So what it would output is that 1, 2, 89, 9, right? To get the idea. 3, 4, 6, 67, and then 5, 6, 21, and 3, right? But if I have a only simple list, I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What it would print like this is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? But let's say you had something like this, but it had only one element. Okay, let me just copy it here and paste it here. It had only one element. Right? So what would happen when something like this would happen? It would come like this: 1, 3, and 5. And it should be clear that why it came like this, because each of the list will be a row, right? Each of the list inside a list will be a row. So here we have 3 rows with each having one items. So it could be pasted like this. So I hope this is clear to everyone how when we would paste the values from Xlwings, it would be pasted this way. So now you want to paste it this way. So each of the elements should be list of list, right? And that is why we created as a list of list. And then now if we run it, right? If we close all of these files, and now if we run it, we would be able to see that what I wanted actually happened. I'll just close it. Right, so this thing opened, and now I could see that when it closed, but let me just open it and confirm. I could see that I have one more row column with sample, which has the sum of elements that I had extracted, and that too, like the first some elements I extracted, some did, and then I just created one more row, one more column, and gave it the same values. So I hope this gives you some sense of how you could do your own data manipulation using Xlwings. So we have now, until now, we have seen something like this using an Excel file. Let's go to an CSV file. Let's go to an Excel file, right? And doing it with Excel file is no different. I'll just put some comments here and say create a list of lists to paste in a column, right? And here I would say that create a numpy array out of extracted values, right? Sum by creating a number. So all of the values I have put, right? I have put all of the comments which signify what I've done, and here just add one more column. Okay, fine. Right, so we have done some basic things with CSV, porting the CSV, and then now let's work with some Excel files. Right. So in fact, let me just not open it at all, because every time it would open, and I will just comment it and say, obviously it will throw all type of errors. So I will just save it here, and then I will just open one more file and save it as Xlwing practice with XLSX. Okay. Now we are practicing with XLSX. So let me just do the same things and copy these two things here and just paste it here. Opening the Excel workbook and importing the sheets, right? That is what we will be doing. So let us do. What we will do is again net schedule data, net SCH data, and then we would do the same thing. Say xw.book, and here we would specify the location. Since I am in the same folder, so I don't need to specify location. I could directly say net schedule.xlsx, as simple as that, right? If I now do the same thing, I let us just print something, and now let us print it from the let's say it had three sheets, so it has three sheets. If you'll inspect it, I want the second sheet, so I'll give the index 1, and then I want to get some range. Let's say I want to get B4 to D10 maybe, right? Something like that, and get the value of it, right? So that's it. Let's see if it is able to get that, right? And then net schedule data dot views. That's it. I want to do. Obviously, there is nothing we have done, so don't need to save it. Let us run it. Python Xlwings practice XLSX. Everyone should understand that why we are doing it in the first place is because whenever we will get data from web, the next thing that we will have to do is create some kind of report out of it or do some data analysis on it. So both of these things would require you to have sufficient knowledge of doing data manipulation or data carpentry. It is also called data. There are other names for the same thing. Basically, you are playing with some data. Now you could see that obviously in the second sheet, if you want to open it, let's see. This is the CSE one. This is excellent. Right, I could see that there are three sheets, right? And in the first sheet, I have taken from what? From B4 to D10. So B4 to D10. This much data I've got, and this is exactly what has been printed out. Right. So I mean, the funda is very same, very similar. Let's say, okay, we will come to that. Let's say I have one more file, right? Let's say we get this one more file and use it without manipulation, right? And let us in fact get more files if we have uh, something like that. I don't know. We can have more files. Let's copy this one as well and bring it into this. So now we have four files, right? And these four files we could use to do some kind of manipulation. Okay, right? Let us try doing with all of those files. But before that, let us see one or two few. I mean, there is not much to see. I mean, left because you've seen that now since you can take those values and do anything you want, right? You could obviously sum over this thing, and we have seen enough that what all we can do. But one more thing, which is you know, which is also useful for anyone like us who deal with data every day, is that let's say you had your own macro. Okay, so let me just, I mean, I don't know. Let me just show you. Macro settings, enable all macros, enable all macros. So I'll just plot my macro thing so that I can show you. Let me just, and just one more second. Options and then button. somewhere here we have, show that developer tab. So I'm just trying to look for that here. Okay. So let's say you wrote your own macro, right? And let's see how we can do that. So let's say you defined a macro, right? Macros, and let's say you define your own macro, something like this you write, right? I am not an expert of macros, so we'll just try to show error message box, something like this. Right? And there is end sub, right? This could take something as an argument, very similar to how our functions take, right? But I mean, I would not do much. I will just say message box and something. My macro is running great. Okay, something like this. So if I just close it now that I have created it and would go to macros, I have it available and I could run it. So I could see that my macro is has run and something has happened. Right? You could write your own macros. But now that you've written a macro and then you wanted to run it using here, right? What you could do, you could run it, right? You may never have to go to this Excel sheet and to run this from this Excel, you could run it directly in Python. So how you would do it? So let's see where I have defined it. I've defined it in net schedule sheet, but I will have to save it as an XLSM file, right? Because my macros are XLSM macro enabled workbooks. Okay, so I'll just save it, and now I could read this, right? Again, it has some code. So let us try and read that file. I'll just say XLSM, or let us create one opening a macro file Python, and running a macro. Sorry, running a macro defined in GPU. So let's say someone else have already created a sheet, right? Something like this, a report which has some macros, and you want to automate that particular Excel whole, right? So you could do that, right? Something like this. So defined in Excel sheet, Excel. So now, first thing you have to read. So macro file. Let's say I say my app book equal to again xw.book. No change in the reading. Reading is same for everyone. It's just that the file extension will change. Now you are since you reference it to something app book, right? Yeah, just reference it to something. What you could do is that now let's say I don't close it, right? Here I don't close it. So your focus would be, I mean, you will see what I'm trying to say. Let's do it, and I will say appbook.active, something like this. So first thing, what I want to show you that how you can, if you are doing something with 4 sheets, right, and something is happening in the 4th sheet in the background. So if you are currently use this sheet, you would how you would go to that 4th sheet, right? So let's say I have already included 2 sheets and I want to uh, change my view, right? I want to activate this one to come forward, right? So how I would do it is simple. I would just again run it and say appbook.activate. What would happen is that this file would open uh, as well as this file would open. So in fact, both of them has same names. That is why it is confusing. But let's say my net schedule, simple one, which has this code, right, XLSM, is opened it at sheet 2. So I will just close it. And it has default state of sheet 3. So this is normal, our normal XLSX file. And we want to finally focus on which one? The one which has second sheet, right, activated. So we will just see that. I have seen that my second sheet is the one which comes on the top, right? So whenever you will say activate to something, that particular sheet will always come on top. So here we can see that the second one open second, so maybe that is why it is on top. But I can bring the older one on top. Okay. Why it could be useful is you will see, right? I will show you examples. So let me just run it again. And now I could see that even though the second one opened, the first one came into my view, right? It came on top of the this one, right? So I mean this is uh, now verified that how this works. So what we were trying to do is run a macro, right? So app book contains a macro. So what I could say that let's say message box, that was a message box, right? That I wanted to run. I could just simply say app book dot macro. Right? We already saw that each of those when we did that dir thing, we saw that there was one more function called dot macro. Aside dot sheets, something like dot sheets were there, but there was something like dot macro. You could just say dot macro and then the sheet in which that macro is placed. So that macro, this one was placed view code. It was placed in sheet 2, right? In sheet 1, there is nothing. In sheet 2, there it is, right? So we define macros for each of the individual sheets. I hope this is known to everyone, right? So what will happen now, just let me close these down once. What will happen now, you could just say that sheet 2, right? That was sheet 2 and dot the uh, error message box. That was the name. Let us just go back and see. This one is macro, this one is, so I have to open the macro one. So in the macro one, I can see that my error message box. So I'll just copy this name and sheet 2 dot this one. So now I have a reference to my macro, right? And what I could now do is simply message box and then this, right? Before that, obviously, I could activate my app book first so that I have a view of what is happening. So app book dot activate, right? And then after a few seconds, let's say I import sleep, right? From time, import time, let's say, and then say time dot sleep, right? Sleep for 5 seconds. So for 5 seconds, I will have that view where this message box appears, right? So let us try and run it. In fact, this can remain open because even if it remains open, Xlwings has no issues. Let it remain open. There are no issues, right? So I'll just run it. Now I could see that something happened, and then now it is asking me to do something. Basically, some operation is happened, right? My macro is running it, and it has run from this file, right? So if there were more macros, right? Obviously, here it is a message box, so it will wait for your action. But there is, let's say, there was some macro which would not wait for your action, then it would just keep running, right? So I hope this is clear to everyone. This makes sense. I did an okay. So now I have my second one back after 50 seconds. So after 5 seconds, this one appeared on top. This is exactly what I've written. So in very simple steps, I could run a macro, right? Just call that function, right? Just call it. I could read a file and I have seen how to write them, right? Write them, in fact, do some data manipulation however we like, and then write them. Okay. Now let us say my exercise is that from from all of these 4 Excel sheets, right? So let's say I have something here, right? Uh, something. Let's say I want to take only the country names here. So we have 217 rows, right? So let's say this is I want to take only country names from here, and then take 17 rows, 217 first 217 values from each of these sheets, right? Okay. In fact, let's take only one because we just want to verify it, right? So let's take ISGS from this one. This one's third sheet, right? Net schedule.xlsx. Let me remove the confusion. Okay. And let's say macro. Wait. Let's say CSV, right? This one is macro, and this one is normal XLSX. So it would just remove some confusion that we are seeing, right? So anyway, and this is net schedule. Let's say it another. So what I want to do is read all of these sheets from coronavirus data. I just want to take the world wala column, which is 270 rows, right? 217 values. And then from another, this one is an Excel sheet from another one. I want to take only one sheet right here. I want to take from 6 to this one, 96 rows, right? Uh, okay. Let's not use this one because this has lesser than 96 rows. It might confuse you, so I'll just remove it. But CSV, right? I want to take these values, right? 217 from this ISGS E column, and then something like this from here as well. From macro, I want to take from the second sheet again 217 columns from here, right? And then from XLSX also from third sheet again 270 columns here, and then that particular list I want to save in one more file, and which I would call something like this. Let's say, I say that it will be also with XLSX. So I could say output.xlsx, right? So I want to create output.xlsx, right? This file. Obviously, this is just a example, so I'll just delete it. It could be created from here, but you get what we are trying to do. So I'll just create one more file and say exercise, right? I'll just say Xlwing exercise. Right? So exercise dot. So my problem statement is create a report, right? Of create a report from various Excel files or spreadsheets, from various spreadsheets. It could be Excel file or it could be a CSV file. So first thing is obviously import it. Import my mail module that I want to use. Xlwings says XW, right? And then XW, sorry. And then I could. Then now I have to read all of them. So one is macro one is XLSX one is CSV one is data, right? So I hope you will be able to change it here, right? That's not an issue. So I'll just first say CSV data and call it xw.book and simple net schedule CSV.CSV, right? This is it. This is it. CSV is in capital. Doesn't matter because this is case insensitive, but I'll just put it like that. Macro and then XLSX. So I'll just say like this and this. This I will say macro data, and this I will say XLS data. Okay, and this is obviously macro here. So macro, and this is XLS. So now even though these names are similar, I have three different variables which clearly define what all of them are. So I want to take 270 rows from and obviously the corona data, right? Uh, COG, COG data, and we will say book, and then let's rename it something simpler. Corona, and it is also a CSV file. So we will say corona.csv. But we have already inspected it, and we saw that we just want one of these country, right? Country, comma, other, and it has some 216 rows, total 217 rows, right? So, and we want to do all of this using Xlwings, because now it gives me very powerful ways to do all of those stuff. So first I want to take the countries from coronavirus data. So I'll say uh, extract countries from COV data, right? So what I will do, COV data dot what, there is only one sheet, right? Because it's a CSV file, sheets 0. And then I need to have a range, right? Sorry. I already saw that it was in second column, right? So I can see that second column, right? So the first index, okay. So the range is B, what? B1 to, right? B 270. This is my range. And then the value, right? This will be a list of lists. So I can say what? Countries, okay. Now I have countries, 217 number. Now what do I want? 217 rows. First 217 rows from XLSX data in the second sheet, right? Second sheet. So what I would say is that, and I would call it, let's say my first column, right? So I would say column 1, right? And I would call it, since I want to get it from XLS data, so I would say XLS data dot sheets, right? Sheets is second, so first one, and then range, range. Obviously, we may have to check again, because just see that where it actually is, but in the rest it would be same. So it is E column, right? And let's keep ISGS intact, right? So I don't need to, I can just call it XLSX ISGS. And this I will have from what? GE1 to E217 I want. So I'll say E12, sorry, E1 to E270. Right? And then obviously the value of it is what I want. Again, similar thing from others, so I'll just copy it and paste it here, paste one more time. Right? So this is from CSV. Again, from CSV also I want ISGS only. Here from here I want from the second sheet, right? From macro I want from the first sheet. So I'll just say macro, right? Macro data from first sheet, right? And I'll just say macro ISGS, right? And CR ISGS, and then CSV ISGS. So in CSV I have again at E row, right? At E row. So all of them has it at E row. So I don't need to change anything. It's just that in macro, I want from first sheet. In CSV, there would only be the 0 sheet, so I would not have something else, right? So now I have 4 lists of lists, right? And I want to place it side by side. See how easy it has become, right? What I could simply do is, let's say I just open a book and call it, when you want to open a new book, you don't need to specify it any name, right? And call it, what would you call it? Let's say output. Output equals external value. So you have specified that you want to open a new book, and then let's say you want to activate it so that it happens in front of you. I mean, obviously, if you were there, you would see it. Otherwise, generally we do it to automate, so activate it. Now, up till here, what would happen is that this will get activated, and now in the output, right? Let's say output dot sheets, and then in the sheets, in the zeroth sheet itself, right? You want to place everything at A1, right? Not everything, each thing in each column. So at A1, you want to place that, right? Here, what you would get is a list of lists. Let in fact print it. So, I mean, you could always print it to examine what they are. So, I mean, all of them looks same. So, if countries list of list, all of them will be list of list. So, even before running this and running these, let us just see how it looks like. Okay. And at the end, obviously, you would want to close all of them. So, I'll just, in the end, I want to close all of them. So, I'll uh, just remove them. Sorry. Not close. Okay. And now you could just remove these. Uh, there is methods in Sublime Text to do something like this. Anyway, so just want to see what those countries are, and let me just cancel it here. So we're running the wrong file because that is changed now. We'll just clear it and Python Xlwing exercise.py. So now all of those four files in net schedule macro.csv. I'm sorry, it should not be CSV but XLSN, and then they should not be a CSV but XLSS. Rest everything is fine. So just close this. You could close it or could not close it. It's up to you. So we are now waiting for all of those four to open, and we have successfully seen that it was able to bring it out. And now we can see that since it's only a simple list, right? It's not a list of lists, right? Because we have got only one column, right? And it's like a simple series itself. So it's a simple list. But if we wanted to, sorry, you just closed it. But if you wanted to, paste it in the Excel, you want it to be list of lists. So what you would do, you would convert it into list of lists, and you could say countries equal to, X for X in countries, right? Countries, countries, and countries. And now, since X for X in countries would again give a simple list, so I'll just, I want list of lists, so something like that I will do. This thing I can do for all of them because I know that all of them will be list of lists. Right? I hope this list comprehension is clear to everyone. Okay. I'll just say this one. And lastly, this one. Okay, so MCR, CACISGS, this one here, and this one. Now I have all of those four things that I have extracted from each of the different ones, and then those are in the form of list of this. Now I could simply, just create new workbook, activate it, and start pasting all of those stuff. So I could say in the first row I have countries, right? In the second row I have output dot sheets, again 01 dot range, and then D1, right? And uh, say what XLSX size is, XLS size is, right? And then in the second row output dot sheets 0 dot range. Let's just copy it. And MCRIC. And then you could just say D1 and paste the last CSVS. So now you could see that you have taken out data from different sheets, and now you want to get it into one sheet. What you could do is that output dot save, and then specify one file called output dot xlwings, right? So accordingly, it would just save. You can see that how easy it becomes when you are working with Python and you're working with something like Xlwings to manipulate Excel. Right? Let's see if this works or if this does not work. Document slash pxfile work and then manipulation. Now we are using a few files to see how it works. Right. Output dot sheets can assign function to call because output dot sheets dot value, right? So there is this issue. Okay, so I hopefully this would now work. Right now it opened all of those files, and then if I just keep it down, I'll just see that it's putting all of those values side by side, and then it's closing all of them, and this one it's saved. Obviously, I did not close it. I did not put the command to close it, so it will just stay open, and I can see that now I have one more file created output, and it is already open, right? So it will not show, but here you can see that what I wanted, I successfully got it. Here, I don't know, maybe we are extracting lesser numbers. The 2017. Well, we are extracting, but maybe they are not there itself. I mean, those will be blank. That is why they are blank. But you get the idea that now your I mean you could do so much of stuff from this, right? So I hope this one is clear to everyone. Xlwings until now is clear, and let's just see how to close Excel object in Xlwings. So that final thing that was just getting there. Cannot close window, not close, close. So it says that obviously you can search something like that, and it says quit quit test dot quit. So anyway, you would just quit it, maybe apps dot quit. So let's just use it and see if while using a simple file it was not closing. So we'll just try to see if this works. And here uh, I could say that CSV, and then at the end I would just say that this one. Let's see if this one works, because this is how this question has been asked, right? And it says that app.kill is also there, but this one should work. So let us close this and see if that actually works now. We will just say Excel in practice, right? Track, and it would open it. It would do something that we have defined in there. It might wait for 5 seconds and then it would close it. Right? So okay, it is giving me error because you need one more module called 5in, right? There is something called 5in32 which needs to be installed and which allows you to work with Windows software specifically. So I mean, obviously you could see it, but I mean in fact maybe you would need to install it sometime. So you would with 32 API, it's called 5in32. So you need to install this programming interface for Windows 32 application. Basically, you can control Windows 32 applications. Uh, I mean 32-bit applications, right? So anyway, this is a useful one, but ultimately why I'm not able to close it, because I don't have that module currently installed with me. But you can explore it yourself, right? So I think this will obviously not work. Let's try it again. Because what I'm confused is that maybe 5 in I should have, then still it is not closing. So it must be because that itself. Right? So no object quit. So you cannot do directly quit. You will have to use apps.quit. Anyway, I don't have 5 in, so I could not quit it. Right, this line would not work. But I could close and do all kind of things with other things. And this particular issue is only with CSV files. If you work with Excel files, they would properly close till the end. So that is not an issue. But I think uh, now we are pretty comfortable with how this works. So I think we can proceed with Pandas, something like that. And because Pandas is even more powerful when you Xlwings is good, but Xlwings will allow you to automate Excel, right? This is very useful when you want to create reports from already existing Excel files. So let's say you have created a template, right? So you had created a template, and in that template, you just wanted to fill values, right? So what you could do is you could scrape data, get it into some list kind of structure, and then use something like this value to assign those values in that list, and then it would be filled. You could save it, right? So you could reuse a template again and again by feeding values from the web, and that is how the final report will be created. So all of this in conjunction of whatever we are learning, all of that in conjunction gives us very powerful tools for either if we want to do data analysis, or we want to do reporting, or we just want to do some simple automation kind of stuff. Okay, so anyone any doubts, please let me know, or I'll just take a 2 minutes pause and then I will just come back. Okay, please let me know. Dave, Ramesh sir, Demi, any issues with what is being displayed here? Does it all make sense and is it all easy to consume? Dave, no. So Dave, any issues, or I mean, no means that you don't have any issues, right? Great, great. So I'll just take 1 minute pause. Just want to drink some water, and I'll just come back. Okay. Great, great. Yeah. Hello everyone. So Uh, I think for today, this should be enough, right? We have seen a lot of stuff today that how we could manipulate any kind of file. It's just that we have very less time, but we can give an introduction to pandas, right? So let's give a brief introduction and let's, rest of stuff we can proceed in the next session. Right? Again, pandas is a big data analysis library. Let's search what it is. Pandas, right? Pandas is data analysis library. So if you learn pandas in Python, you can basically take any kind of data you have seen in life and you can analyze it, right? Uh, it can even read PDFs, it can read Excel files, it can read CSV files, and obviously you could read other kind of files and pass it to pandas to software library written for Python for data manipulation and analysis. So this is what we're doing, right? It offers data structures and operations for manipulating numerical tables and time series, right? Ultimately, in the kind of jobs we are doing, we would often find time series data, right? Timestamp data. So with some, there would be some key time and then a value corresponding to time, or otherwise there would be some simple spreadsheets. They may, just like we have seen right now, they may not be timestamp. So you can manipulate all of them. So let's see how it works like. In fact, let us try some of the examples. In fact, let's see something like this: 10 minutes to pandas, right? So this, I think we can spend some 10-15 minutes. So we will just say it quickly, and then we will do all of these operations in next lecture. Right? So what happens is that it says that some small interaction to pandas, and it starts with importing the NumPy library. So it wants to do, it does not have a data, it is assuming that some data will be there, right? So it is just showing examples by creating some arrays using NumPy, right? So in fact, uh, just give me 1 minute. And basically, there are two types of Panda data frames, right? Pandas data types, right? One is called series, where basically you have a list of numbers, right? A long list, and that would be basically some series. Right? And then there is one more data type called data frames, which resembles like your spreadsheets, right? So basically, there are some columns and there are some rows. So this particular thing is called data frame in Python, in pandas, right? And pandas is a Python library, so yeah, it is called a data frame. What How data frame allows you with so much of power is that uh, you know I mean, it gives you in memory, it creates the data structure, something like this, right? And then what happens is that you could just, ask for the column name, and then you would have all the values. Like, for example, in here, what we are doing that, we are indexing it, right? And we have to know that, this many columns are there. So we are, taking all of those values. Let's say I did not want to give it this index because it should be dynamic, right? I don't, even if there are variable number of rows here, I should be able to read all of them, right? So that is where Pandas is very useful, that you will have to just say D, and even if it has variable number of rows, all of them will be read, right? So mostly when we are doing data manipulation, we will be working with uh, data frames. But since you already know NumPy and you already know Xlwings, you basically have a lot more power than you had if you only knew Pandas, or if you only knew NumPy, or if you only knew Xlwings, right? So anyway, I think it's just a small introduction, right? There are ways to view data. There are ways to do other things. There are ways to, if it's a time series data, there is a way to specify indices to that time series. and obviously you could create it to a NumPy array. Since NumPy arrays are faster, right? This is why you would do something like this. And on the NumPy array, you could do so much of stuff, right? Describe basically does a summary of it, right? And sort index basically it would sort on one of those values. Right? It says x is 1, so it just wants to sort at d, right? And sort by values b, so here's born to. So there are a bunch of different things that you can do. I think so much we have already seen using NumPy in Xlwings, right? Only thing it is gonna give you is more power in your hands to manipulate any kind of data that you want, right? And even start your journey with data analysis if you want, and reports creation. For reports creation, if you have Xlwings, if you know Xlwings very well, and you could see that it is so simple, right? You could do anything you want. Even for if you want to run a macro, it is as simple as that. Right? So I mean, definitely, if you are working on macros or something like that, you should start using Xlwings right away, because it saves you a lot of hassle in terms of, because VB does not really have a lot of support online. It has, because it is a legacy language. I mean, it is an old language, but uh, you know Python. If you have Python, you don't need to look at any other language, right? Obviously, the web ones are different, but with Python, you could do scientific computing. In fact, let's see here that applications of Python, right? Applications of Python. So it would on the Python page itself, right? It would tell you like applications for Python, that how useful it is. It's a big page, right, where it says that you could do web and internet development, right? And then you could do scientific and numeric computing, and then you could educate it. That's what we are doing in this class. We're trying to learn it. So even to learn programming, it is a great language. You could use it for desktop GUIs. You could use it for software development. And here also it has seen, it has given all of those packages that you do. So we have seen request beautiful. So we are kind of using here, right, for internet scraping, right, web scraping. And then desktop GUI we are not doing, but there are these libraries you can use. Software development, these are there, and business applications. Right. One thing is written here like Pandas. So data analysis and modeling you can do. Right. And it is widely used in data science. Okay. So I think that should be it for today's session, where we learned a lot of stuff about Xlwings. And I think for today's session, that should be the only takeaway. In the next session, we will start with Pandas, right? And we will start exploring the dataset. With Pandas, there is one more library called Matplotlib, right? And that allows us to explore data in form of charts. So maybe we will look at that as well, right? What in this particular lecture, I wanted to use Xlwings because we wanted to do something and see it on our system. But Pandas we will use in our own Google Colab because it allows for everyone to do the same thing, right? So I think that is it for today's session. We can meet tomorrow, right, and continue our journey on uh, data manipulation with Pandas. Right. So, are there any issues with today's session? If there are, please let me know. I think we can unmute and have a bit of chat because today's session is kind of over. So, I would just like to ask Ramesh sir that uh, if whatever was taught, would you be able to implement it? I mean, I will share all of this stuff, but are you feeling confident that you would be able to automate your Excel files using Xlwings? Just wanted to get a view. What about you, Dave?
Need practice.
Need practice, right? But that is fine. I mean, obviously, without practice, it would not happen.
Hmm.
But if looking at the syntax and looking at how things are done in Xlwings, I mean,
Everything is
it
clear.
would give you some confidence, right? I know it is easier than any other and data
Hmm.
analysis library where you have to get values and then do something. Here it is more intuitive and it should be easier, right?
Hmm.
चलो ठीक है. Ramesh sir, any comments? I think Ramesh sir is not there. Are you there, Ramesh sir? Not yet. ठीक है, great sir. So I think that is it for today's session. We will meet at the same time tomorrow. Before that, I will just stop the recording.